Hello and welcome to the Open Era podcast. My name is Devang and Hshieh. This week, Simon and I are off as we take a break after the US Open. So we're going to look back at an episode we recorded in January of this year after Jannik Sinner and Aryna Sabalenka won a major title. Sound familiar? It should, because it happened at the Australian Open just a few short months ago. So I thought it'd be funny funny. Depends on how you look at it, but I thought it would be fun for the most part to look back at our thoughts following Sinner and Sabalenka's big wins in January, just to maybe consider what we thought then and what happened since and where we stand now after yet another major success for both players. So join us in looking back at our Australian Open recap episode from January of this year, and Simon and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Open Era. Hello and welcome to the Open Era podcast. My name is Devang and Hshieh, and I'm joined as always by Mr. Simon Bushell on Slam Final Sunday. Boy, oh boy, did we dodge a bullet here, Simon. This weekend, for a time there, was looking like we might have to skip it entirely and not do a podcast. But we got some people we liked in the final on Sunday, and of course, we got a women's final with plenty of storyline, Simon. I feel fortunate today, do you?
Well, I think faced with the prospect of an Alexander Zverev-Novak Djokovic final and having to come on this podcast, I felt like we got a good result in the end, really, did we not?
We did. And I mean, there's plenty to talk about. There's a huge moment for Jannik Sinner at 22 years old, capturing his first slam in comeback fashion against Daniil Medvedev. Let's start there, Bush, with the final. Fresh in our minds, Jannik Sinner breaking through. He had beat Novak a bunch of times recently, especially towards the end of last season, which must have boosted his confidence. But how confident really did you feel going into that semifinal against Novak? Because I still was probably 20% sure he could do it.
I probably was a little higher than 20%, but probably not a whole lot higher. I think to do this against a dude on that court, specifically with the record that Novak Djokovic has there, and given the win streak and everything else that went into this storyline, it is a stunning achievement. And the manner of the victory, I think, is one that has a lot of people writing articles and stories and commenting on, because he just blew the doors off him, really. And so much so that I was flummoxed into believing that Novak Djokovic was permanently injured in this match. And maybe he was, and maybe we'll see more about that stuff as the next few weeks come out. But on the surface of it, Jannik Sinner won it pretty much fair and square and was completely and utterly the better player. The final was a completely different story, though, Devang. Completely different story. He started off very poorly, and I thought Dani Medvedev played in a fashion that you don't often see from him, which is a lot closer to the baseline, much more aggressive, looking like Andre Agassi out there at times, coming to the net, playing an all-court game. And he was easily the better player for two sets. And I think it's testament to the resiliency of Jannik Sinner that he was able to battle back and win this final.
Do you think he changed that much, though, Jannik Sinner? I think maybe this is more a testament of him just staying the same and Medvedev not being able to maintain what he was doing in those opening two sets, because you're right. It looked like a Med who hadn't played 90 million hours on court this week somehow, and he looked okay physically, which I think overall definitely took its toll. But I think it was telling when Jannik won the third set, and he did like a kind of a reassuring sigh to himself, and then looked at his camp, and I think that kind of confirmed, I just have to keep going, keep doing what I'm doing. I don't have to change that much, and it worked. It really did work.
So much is going to be made about the discrepancy the disparity perhaps in court time that was between the two players. I think so much will be written about the fact that 24 hours on court for Dani Medvedev across the 2 weeks. When other sports start complaining about how tough their schedules are and how challenging it is to fit in like multiple matches in a week in football or something like that, I would urge them to look at what Danny Medvedev has just had to go through in mid 25-degree heat on a hard court in the middle of Australian summer. Well, it's remarkable.
I'm glad you brought that up now, because I think it's a good time to bring it up. And I think Easy on the Discord mentioned this as well. But what a test, what a great postcard for the 3-set first week, 5-set second week idea that's been floated around, because it didn't really make any sense. And I don't think it's good either that you have people playing in a day session one day and then a night session the next, and back and forth flip-flopping. I can't see how that's good or fair, right? Like, I think Djokovic had that issue as well. We're at a point now where people cannot watch these full matches, no matter how much they love the sport. Most of them can't. I mean, we are tennis fans, and sometimes I'm going in and out. Most times I'm going in and out of these epics. They got to do it. They have to do it, Simon. Like, I get why, and I get history, and I get like the beautiful game and the ethos of the game, but it's a bit ridiculous.
It is. I think just for the protection of the players as well. Like, I always look at this from a labor perspective as well, of how much time and how grueling it is. It's going to shorten careers. I know Danny Medvedev is a freak athlete and is able to do some of these things, but you can't tell me that someone at the age of 27 is doing 24 hours on court in the burning heat over a 2-week period and doesn't feel the effects of it for the rest of the year or for the next few months as he's trying to get into his schedule for the year. I don't care how good of an athlete you are. It's going to take an effect on you.
100%. You picked Med to win this tournament, Simon, which I think was a bit bold. I know Owen was shocked by that, but in the end, you looked wise. I felt really bad for him after this. Like, I know he's a multi-millionaire and he's jet setting around the world and he's got it pretty good, but that one has to sting. And I mean, it's happened to him a couple times now at this slam particularly, but I don't know what else to say about Med. We'll get to Sinner, but I don't know what else to say about it than he looked gassed. It didn't look like he had enough in the tank, but also what he was doing early and it was working. It just didn't seem sustainable.
So I think there's a few routes that you could take on this one to sort of analyze why he's ended up with this finals record the way that he has. The Australian Open one and losing multiple Australian Open finals from 2 sets up is somewhat of a freak occurrence, just given who he's playing against. I do think the final record at Grand Slam is interesting as well. Is it 5 or 6 that he's lost now?
I think he's made 6, so he's won 5.
Made 6, so yeah, so lost 5. Honestly, Dev, and I know this is going to sound harsh, but the way the dude plays the game and the amount of time that he spends on court and just not being a forward-focused, aggressive kind of player, he just opens himself up to this happening more, that he's just going to be done by the end of tournaments. And despite all of that being said, we mentioned in the first few minutes of the podcast of how good of an athlete he is. It is going to take its toll on you eventually to be able to get across the line. And it's happened a bunch of times. Like, there's no denying it. Like, despite how well he's played in some of these finals, it's just a very grueling physical style that does eventually wear you down. And maybe that is an oversimplification, but by God, if you look back at the record of some of these tournaments that he's been in, he's played so much tennis. It's got to take an effect on you, surely.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I thought his coach, Gil Cervera, who's just he's just an amazing watch just to see his interactions or his mannerisms in the box. He's often not doing anything, but when he is doing something, I think it's really interesting. But he did a really interesting interview in French talking about how these matchups are like a bike race and players get off to faster and slower starts and just about catching up. And Daniil Medvedev specializes in catching up, but I think when he gets past, there's the issue, right? Like, when he's past, can he muster up something to regain where he was and get back into the match, or is that gear not there? And I think especially when you're playing that long, it's even harder to get to that gear that he got to get the lead. So I think there's a lot to that argument, Bush, about the playing style. I mean, he's also he's played Nadal and Djokovic in a bunch of these, so I think that's something to consider. And the fact that this is a different guy now, that's why I think it has to sting a bit more as well, because the idea is that Med or guys like Med could have made a lot more hay if they had more runway without guys like the big three. But it was here. There was a big chance for him. And yet it's Sinner's on Jannik Bush. He's 22. I think this was the same amount of slam appearances that Fed made before his first slam, which is the big comparison everyone is making. You've called this for a while now, though. I'm curious, like, what do you think clicked finally for him? Is it just getting better with age and like getting serious? I think Darren Cahill's addition obviously will be talked about as a big turning point for him, but it feels like we were waiting for this moment, and now that has happened, it's like, okay, we're ready, keep going. But it's interesting to me, it wasn't like an instant success for Jannik Sinner. This is a slow build, slower than Alcaraz for sure, and that's why I kind of feels rewarding as well.
Yeah, so it's, I think, multiple factors, right? It's obviously physical stature growing into the frame in the way that everyone looks at the physical specimen that Carlos Alcaraz was at 18 and 19. Jannik Sinner was not that. He was and still is a skinny kid despite being a phenomenal athlete. And I think you can see that the change in stature that he's had since he was 19 coming onto the tour. He is much thicker at this point. It has to be said, but he's also never going to be, muscles bulging all over the place. It's one of those that there's different kinds of strength, and I think he's finally grown into that. Secondarily, it's obviously like mental and belief, like just to have some of the match wins that he has had at the back end of last year and carrying that on. There's no alternative to that stuff. You've got to be able to put yourself in many matches and win them in order to believe. And I think obviously the Davis Cup win, I think, was huge for him. I think that has really kickstarted a lot of his good run and everything else that comes with it. And then finally, obviously, everyone's going to talk about the serve. It helps having a good serve. Helps if you're able to win cheap points. Helps you make deep runs into tournaments. He's been absolutely phenomenal on serve all week, especially in that Novak Djokovic semi-final. He never gave him a sniff, never faced a break point in the semi-final. It's astonishing against clearly the greatest returner of all time. I don't think anyone's ever going to deny that. But I think those three categories really identify why he's made the leap. Also, for better or for worse, he's really fucking talented, Dev. And it was going to be a matter of time before he started winning these things.
You gotta tip your cap to the guy. He's pretty good. He's pretty good at this tennis thing. I like his shout out to his parents for being normal was also my favorite part of this match. He's like, you know what? Thanks, guys, for not being insane, because he's clearly watched all around him as the various tennis families have disbanded and gone nuclear.
Did you make much of the thing that's floating around about how people in the 2000s have won more Grand Slams than people in the 90s? Have you seen that story?
It's upsetting.
On the men's
Super
side.
upsetting. Yeah. How effed is that? It is a bit of I don't want to call them a lost generation, because I think it implies something far more significant than it actually is. But sort of, and like I think now you're seeing like Milos is getting towards the end. I think Milos is now like a Davis Cup guy. He's like filling in randomly, but he's near the end. Like Nishikori's I know he's still going, but like he looks like he's close to the end. Like, I don't know, man. It's sad. That's why I think the Med loss got to me. I also think it got to me because I think Med has fully become my favorite player. And I didn't think I was going to have a favorite player again after Federer push, but it happened. I was thinking about writing about this actually, because it was a bit of a strange feeling to care that much again about that Zverev semifinal. Like I found myself very locked in to a point where I haven't been in a long time. So yeah, that's why I think why the Medvedev loss got to me pretty significantly this morning.
You know what I will say about this is that I find myself watching in those first two sets and thinking, Danny Medvedev good enough to win Wimbledon? Damn, this guy's pretty
right. If he can come to the net with this regularity, with this confidence, like unbeatable. Jannik had no answers.
We should talk about this though. Just broadly, the Med obviously it's a dreadful loss for Medvedev. He got the real moral victory by beating Alexander Zverev, of course, but this is the same points that were made when Carlos Alcaraz obviously won 2 titles now at Grand Slam level. This feels like a player in Jannik Sinner who is going to win a lot. Like, we're going to see a lot of him winning. I mean, there's a lot of pressure to put on someone to go and win multiple majors, and I don't think that's something that it should be an expectation without wanting to, chuck a load of pressure on a 22-year-old. Exactly, right? But he's going to win a lot. he has the game style, and there's absolutely no reason why this dude can't be world number one and win everything on every surface at every tournament he's in with the game style that he has, the mental strength that he has, the completeness of his game. This is a complete player. There's no other words to describe it. He is that good, and he should be a dominant force for a very long time. And I think this is an important moment for him to get his first Grand Slam.
Yeah, I think Josh mentioned this on the Discord as well about the serve, Simon. I mean, Josh is bang on about a lot of things, but I think he was nail on about this, the serving, and how it would be the key probably for Sinner and then Alcaraz as well, and how far they go forward and how many slams they get or how they can keep adding to their total. But and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Jannik's game is a bit more repeatable at the moment than Carlos's in a big spot. I don't know how you feel about that.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think overall you would say that Carlos Alcaraz has the bigger weapons. Certainly, if that forehand ever comes back and he starts hitting it the way that we want him to. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing that's really terrifying about it, is that Sinner just has such a high floor, and it's just so repeatable to the point where you're like, he's nailed on. He's removed some of these 5-setters from his bag and has gone back to winning in straights. It's scary times, and it's a scary prospect if that continues. All it's going to come down to now is motivation and trying to keep the fire and the hunger and be okay with being chased. If he can do that and handle the pressure, pick a number of tournaments that he can win throughout the course of the next few years.
Not to throw Fed's name in there again, but I wouldn't be surprised if he, it took a while for Fed to get going, but once he did, he started racking them up pretty bigly. Pardon the phrase. Pretty bigly, pretty quickly. And he didn't take long for him to add to this trophy cabinet. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jannik Sinner does the same. Just on the rest of the field, Simon, you mentioned the Zverev thing. What the hell would this tournament have done if he made the final? I do think the luck and that this didn't happen should not skirt from the fact that, it really... It's one thing to watch through your hands and cringe about this and watch his press conferences and bristle, but there was going to be a on-court speech lauding this man either way had he had won that semifinal against Medvedev. Doesn't seem like there's much introspection about that amongst the organizers, does it? I mean, if there is, please send it my way, but it doesn't seem like that.
Doesn't seem like that to me either. I think it's testament to the fact that the day after he was knocked out of the tournament, the BBC had an article ready to go, which was Alexander Zverev's complicated relationship, or tennis's complicated relationship with. Yeah. I think they were holding on to that one until he would reach the final, as a preview piece, and accidentally had to drop it immediately after he got knocked out of the tournament. Tells you all you need to know, I think.
And I mean, sounds like Novak's going to take a lot of time off. He'll come back in Indian Wells, I believe. Yeah. So, I mean, but also he kind of treats Australian Open as the end of his season anyway, so not a huge shock. But Pog has mentioned this a lot in the Discord as well. My God, we needed some fresh blood. But now this conversation, I do think actually takes on a bit of new life. I don't know if Novak is nailed on to win any of these slams. Maybe. I mean, I'm not going to discount him at all, but we have other names, obviously. But between the two, Jannik and Carlos Busch, who ends this year with more slams?
Well, that's an easy one because Jannik's already won one.
One already. Yeah.
I'll take that one because I don't fancy predicting the other tournaments.
It's true. And also, here's the bold one. I think Jannik, he gets his next one before Carlos gets his next one.
Yeah, and it's anyone. Pick any of the Grand Slams. He's good everywhere. Yeah. He could win all of them. That's the funny part about it.
Any other closing thoughts on the men's side, Simon, before we get to the women's side after the break?
He has him being Jannik Sinner. He is him, to use an online phrase, the best wall face in all of tennis, I think. The fist pump is iconic at this point.
It is very good.
It's very repeatable.
It's very repeatable. He's like Leighton Hewitt. People don't give Leighton Hewitt enough respect for the point in celebration because you can't really mess that up. You can't really fudge that up. It's very repeatable. Yannick's got that in Lane Hewitt's home tournament. Pour one out for Taylor Fritz as well. I just want to say this quickly, but Fritz Domania is probably dead. Bush, I'm out. Give me a little bit more against Novak, man. I think he was saying, like, hey, I'm an older guy now. Like, I'm not the same guy. I think he is. Sadly.
Sad state of affairs when someone... Is he 25? Is that what he is?
6, I think. I think
26.
He's 26. Yeah.
Past it. One point on this, though, is that he is going to be someone that I think benefits a lot from the post-Novak Djokovic landscape. And I think if Djokovic is going to play a extremely light schedule, I think this year, surely the over and under on tournaments played for him is less than 10. Maybe.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't even.
Surely.
Yeah. I don't think I think this is Novak is going 1 zillion miles an hour for that Olympic gold. I think.
Yeah, I mean, what's the number? He's going to play like he'll play the 4 Grand Slams, he'll play the Olympics, he'll play Belgrade, maybe he'll play some of the Masters, maybe Cincinnati.
It won't be a lot, yeah.
It won't be a lot. I can't imagine he maybe plays one of Indian Wells and Miami. Yeah, maybe the number is going to be like 12 tournaments, 11, something in that territory. And if that's the case, then a lot of the rest of the tour who basically can't beat him is going to make hay in some of these
98% of them. That's why it's ridiculous. I'm like, I don't know if he's going to win a slam this year. Like, he probably will, people. He probably will. He's insane. He's pretty good at this thing.
Also, I guess just add, not to be ridiculous about closing a section where Novak didn't win this tournament, but you can add another name to the list of players that can now beat him at Grand Slam level. And for a very long time, that list was like two people.
Yeah.
And now it's at 3. So
God,
we've grown. Our numbers are growing.
we gotta speed this up a bit, but no, it's a good sign. And yeah, I think I'll just mention quickly. I don't know if you saw that fantastic Mr. Fox thing. Tennis TV put out that graphic, Bush. Mm-hmm, maybe the most upsetting thing I've seen ever.
Oh, you didn't like it? I loved it. It was great.
You liked it? What? Okay. Moving on quickly. We'll take a break. And then we'll talk about Aryna Sabalenka winning a second trophy at Raleigh Arena, back-to-back at the AO for Lenka, coming up next on Open Era. Welcome back to the Open Era podcast. Simon, on the women's side, we got it right. I think we called this. We both predicted that Aryna Sabalenka was going to win this tournament, and she did. She did, I would say, in maybe the most impressive manner we've seen a champion win a slam in some time. Mm-hmm. It's been a while, not too long. I mean, Iga's done her thing, obviously, but to reassert herself where she last won a big trophy, I think this was quite the statement to make from the best women's player in tennis.
Oof. He's gone there already.
I did it, right? I just had to see how you reacted, and I knew a wince was coming. So yeah.
This final finished.
You know, I also do want to say, whenever we do mention Iga, we got a lot of love from Poland and Iga fans. So this is very bad business for me to be doing this, but it had to be said. I'm sorry, friends.
Jeez, he's gone into business for himself here. You got to think of the podcast, dude. We're a publicly traded company now.
I'm cheering for a flagless person now. Listen, I don't cheer for borders. I'm beyond that.
I was looking at my scrawlings in my notebook, and this final finished 3-2. Yeah. Do not let the number fool you. This was not that close.
Against a phenomenal play, like Zhang, awesome run. Like, I think the Kalinskaya match was awesome. There's a lot of signature moment. Lina, the smack heard around the world. She had a wonderful tournament, but it didn't seem like they were on the same level at all, right? Like, it felt like they were playing at different levels of competition. That's just a testament to how impressive Sabalenka has been. Goff match, Simon, I mean, the breaker was nervy. I don't know how close really Coco was in that. Another maybe symptom of the scoreline deceiving, but she was not altogether pushed that hard. And that's a testament to how well Sabalenka is playing, especially on the hard court.
Yeah, there's no denying that she's the best hardcourt player in the world, right? I think that's easy to summarize, just given her performances here and how she's looked throughout the course of the season, or in the 2023 season as well. The closest comparison that was always made to her, I think, when she was growing up and into her early 20s was Serena Williams, just given the game style and everything else. She sure as shit looked like Serena Williams in this final, didn't she?
I was gonna say this is a Serena tournament. You want to compare it? This reminded me of Serena bombing through a field and just destroying people. Totally reminded me of that.
And I don't want to harp on like Paul Zhang in the final, because like great tournament. She's gonna do good things in this sport. Like she's gonna, I think, probably get to another final at some point. I really do believe that, given the game style that she has. But she made it look like Sabalenka made it look like a qualifier, like just given how much. It was not just the stature; it's the weight of the tennis ball and her ability to rip through on return of serve. That is probably one of the things that's most remarkable about Sabalenka, is her ability to time and generate power on return of serve. When you see someone standing a foot inside of the baseline and just clubbing balls past you, it's got to be so disheartening. We've all been there, right, as tennis players, who's nervous standing over a second serve. And even a professional player, to see someone encroaching in on you and whacking the shit out of any ball that's coming back on your second serve, it's got to be a little demoralizing, put it that way.
The fifth player this century to win the title at the Australian Open without dropping a set, joining Ash Barty in 2022, Serena in 2017, Sharapova in 2008, and Lindsay Davenport in 2000. Excellent company, Simon.
Phenomenal company. The real question for her is, like, what happens next for her, really?
Well,
like, to go back to back.
She has now reached that level of uber consistency. Like, she's constantly in the discussion towards the end of these slams, to a point where that to me was kind of the last question left before the run of slams. It was consistency, and we're totally seeing it. Like, she is nailed on, going to bring her stuff at the biggest moments, which is what we kind of need from our best and our greats. And that's why I'm kind of pretty bullish on her continuing to win really big titles, Simon, because I think she's very comfortable now with being the best.
As she should be as well. There's no player on the tour, I think, that she should fear, really. Like, I think she can beat everyone. Her matchups, there's a very small section of people that I think can beat her or knock her off her game when she's playing at a top level. I think that's one of the questions that I would put out to the audience, because I don't know the answer to it, and I would probably defer to people who know more about the sport than I do. Sabalenka at full flight, top of her game, better than Iga Swiatek at full flight, top of her game. Man, it's pretty close, right?
At the risk of getting beaten by the recency bias mallet, I will say yes to that question. But then that'll change when we get to RG.
Dude, I'm telling you, publicly traded podcast.
Last person to go back-to-back here also, Victoria Azarenka, fellow Belarusian. Shouts to Lenka and Azarenka. There was a protest, a pro-Palestine protest, Simon, during the match as well. Shouts to those people for putting it on the line. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, the final, I didn't expect it to be an epic, but it served as a nice underlining moment for Aryna Sabalenka as the person to reckon with on the women's tour. I do want to say, Simon, how hilariously embarrassing it was, how happy Brits were that Yastremska lost before she made the finals so that Emma Raducanu's bullshit record was safe. Have some shame, people.
No, man. That's we gotta hold on to those things. They're important. Just on Sabalenka, just briefly, before we forget it, 2022 US Open, right? So you can sort of circle, goes to the semifinal there, loses in devastating fashion. Since that moment, win, semifinal, final, win. This is the woman who's at the top of the sport. She's running deep in every Grand Slam now. No surface, I think, she should fear any surface, and she should be, the rest of the field should be terrified of her.
We were quick to say big whatever, but I mean, the top two are very, very good, and the people around them have to answer this call. I think Coco was okay. I think the forehand again left a lot to be desired over the last couple of weeks, but I don't think she's at the level of those two at their best to enter her into that conversation as well. The serve, Sabalenka's serve is it's elite, and it is a massive game changer, Simon. So I think that's another separation for her.
It goes in now.
It goes in now. What a twist. But elsewhere, yeah, I mean, like the top half kind of hollowed out. We got some surprise semifinalists. I mentioned Yastremska. Zheng will probably be back. Hopefully, we'd like to see that. But do you have any other lasting takeaways from the women's side of the draw, Simon? I think it was a little more chalk at the bottom half, and we got that Sabalenka Goff match that we wanted. But it does feel like there's some separation between the elite. Not to say that they can't lose on their day. I mean, Iga definitely lost, but I don't think she was 100% either.
I think for all the things that we constantly say about how deep the women's tour is, and I think that is very true, it's also a testament to the fact, or it's interesting to note, I would say, on this one, how quickly the same people that talk about how deep the tour is were quick to deride the top half of this draw when Iga Świątek got knocked out for it being weak. It's kind of fascinating, a wonderful, I don't know, double standards is the wrong word, I don't mean that, but like I enjoyed that top half of the draw when Iga Świątek got knocked out because it was all over the shop. I had no idea who was going to win these matches, and sometimes it kind of looked like some of these players who were out there didn't know who was going to win these matches, which is great. Like that's incredible theatre because you have a bunch of players who probably weren't expecting to make as deep a run as they did, get put into a position where, no, like you can actually make a Grand Slam final here. There's no one here in front of you that you don't think you can beat, or you don't at least think you're in with a puncher's chance of winning against. And I think that makes for great drama. And I really enjoyed that about this side of the draw.
No, it's excellently put, and I agree totally. Push. The top 10 after this, Zhang is in at 7. Maria Sakkari hanging on at 9. God, this is painful. But Sabalenka's getting close, Bush. She is around 800 points off from Iga in the race for number 1. That will be fun this year. I know there's some points to defend for both of them, but this race, if it is a big 2,
puts a ton of pressure onto Świątek going into the clay court season, doesn't it? She can't have a slip up there at this point. If they both care about the number 1 ranking, which, sure, why not? If you're there, you might as well take it. You might as well go for it. But this is Iga's time to shine, isn't it? Going into the clay in, I'm saying going into the clay in 3 months' time or whatever it is when we actually get there. 4 months, 5 months. Yeah, we're going to get through the hardcore season first.
Anything else, Bush, on the women's side before parting shots?
I don't think so. I enjoyed this draw a lot. I thought it was dramatic. I thought we got the right winner. And despite it being a bit of a procession, I think that more speaks to the fact of how good the champion was than the rest of the tour. I really do genuinely believe that she has the opportunity to do a very, very special thing in 2024 and run very deep in all of these tournaments again.
Excellent. All right, into parting shots. Simon, Rohan Bopanna, what a fortnight for him. The elder statesman of Indian tennis, achieving world number 1 in men's doubles and winning the title with Australian Matthew Ebden, beating Italians Bolelli and Vavasori. Bops, as he's affectionately known. Rowe, probably, called by Chapo. What a moment, Simon, for Bopanna.
Absolutely incredible moment, yes. He's going to be 44 in 3 weeks from the time this episode comes out. 44 years of age, gets to world number 1, wins the first Grand Slam of the year. All I kept thinking in that final is buttery smooth. The man is so smooth on a tennis court. Fucking hell. It's like watching a Ferrari out there, like an old Ferrari. If you want to use a car metaphor, it's like one of those cars from like the 1930s or something. You look at it, you're just like, yeah. I'm not a car guy. I don't give a fuck, by the way. But like, just I'm trying to stretch a metaphor here.
I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, okay, yeah, I get it. Totally.
Let's go for an eco-conscious metaphor here. It's like a bike, right? Like it's like a beautiful Brompton. There you go. That's what people in the bike world like.
I love stats like this where it's like almost backhanded, but he now tops the open era list for most attempts made before winning a men's double slam title, surpassing Rajiv Ram at 58. It's like, all right, thanks. We get it. It took a long time, but also fantastic. Huge dad. Like I feel like his celebrations are also very dad vibesy. Like the chess thing he does with Ebden, I think is hilarious and weird.
Oh my God, Dev. There's so much to be said about Ro here. One thing I did think here was Robopara has to be the widest man on tour.
He's got to be. He's got to be.
He's so wide.
It's a fridge.
The man looks like a door playing tennis.
How much is he squatting? How much is he squatting is the question. It's got to be a lot.
He's got some big Sampras energy on return of serve as well, bending over like a dinosaur. It looks fantastic.
He's got a Canada link too. He won with Gabby Dabrowski at the French Open, so he's got a mixed doubles title as well. That's why another reason why that stat was not necessarily like it took him 90 years to get this title. It's like thanks.
Gray beard, love it. Love the just the overall energy and the vibe is just fantastic, Dev. It's great to see him.
It's a good sign that not random, but like Chapo's link with him doesn't make sense to me, but it does because he seems like a good guy to have around, right? Like that's the only reason that there has to be a link.
And shout out Indian tennis as well, Dev. Like, no word of a lie here. Like it's actually a massive win to have another Grand Slam champion on the men's side. It's awesome.
I think this was on the Discord, and Josh was asking for a deep dive into why India has produced a lot of good doubles players, and I kind of thought to myself, court time is limited. Doubles makes sense because there's not that many courts, but I feel like there's something to be written there for sure. Perhaps V, friend of the show, is on it already, but if he's not, Vivek, do your thing, man.
And in honor of Vivek and in honor of Could have
oh my God, are you going to speak Hindi again? I got a lot of direct messages of shock, anger, fear, frustration once they heard the open air come out full of Bush's Hindi.
Here we go, people. I'm going to wish Mr. Bopara congratulations in Hindi. I'm not. Of course I'm not. That's fucking ridiculous. Why would I do that?
You got me. Damn it. I was waiting. Okay. Shout out to Matthew Ebden as well, Simon. He seems like he's like a normal Aussie, like someone you could get along with. I don't want to make that sound like Australians are not normal, but how I'm saying this is like he's not Nick Kyrgios. That's basically it. He seems all right.
I agree with you. I for the longest time, I saw his name in a drawer and really thought it was Peter Ebden, the British snooker player, and was like, wow, that's a big change of direction for Mr. Ebden.
It's getting around.
This final was amazing for that, though, right? Like you have Ebden running around like a blue-assed fly and just all over the net, and you got Bopana just like gently strolling around the court, hitting boss shots, and just economy of movement, if you want to use that terminology here.
Please, listeners, write in with who is wider than Rohan Bopana on the tour. It could be dangerous, but genuinely curious. Is there someone? Simon, all right. We do this every tournament, every slam for sure, but was this tournament good? Question mark. Was it actually good? How do you feel now that we're done?
Great. It was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Like the winners on the
say this now.
side.
I don't want the revisionist history though to gloss over how close we were to DEFCON 1. Like we were very close.
Yeah, we were. Jesus Christ, it was looking dicey for a time there. I think across all of the singles and doubles and everything, you got a lot of feel-good stories of winners. Hshieh Wei won on the doubles, one of the mixed doubles. Bopana won in the men's doubles. De Groot won in the women's wheelchairs. Oda won in the men's singles in the wheelchair, which is it's a surprise, and it was a big grudge match again in the final against Hewitt. There was good winners all over the place, and I think it's kind of nice as well that Jannik Sinner winning that against the backdrop of some very old grey beards and grey hair in some of the other disciplines.
It's well said. I think you're right. And I think Owen said this last week when we were at the halfway point that it was better already. And I think he was right then and he's right at the end. Like, I think the quality was great. We got a bit lucky because of some shambolic scheduling that a lot of stuff was on like through the morning in our part of the world, which is kind of rare, but always welcome. Yeah, I had a great time. I was locked in on Ned. Found myself being a fan again for the first time in a while. which felt nice, but also a bit sad because it didn't go the way I wanted. I was remembering how, like, obviously not to this level, but 2019 Wimbledon final, probably the lowest point of fandom for me in terms of tennis. But I hadn't got close to feeling that way about a match in a while, and this one kind of brought me back. So in some ways, I think that's okay.
For fear of being accosted online for someone who doesn't have a social media presence, and I do mean this with the greatest of respect. Also, take this with a... How many caveats can I put in front of this?
Jesus.
How many can I put in front of this statement? The men's sport is better when Novak Djokovic doesn't win. It just is. Right. It's just a more interesting place. And I kind of wonder whether deep down in the sort of ghoulish areas of the ATP, whether they kind of want him to just... Is it time, Novak? How you feeling? How's the body feeling? You want to hang it up sometime soon? Let some of these other kids...
But I think it's important that he's still involved, though, because there's got to be someone that people can use as a measuring stick for the layman. So I think in that way, he's still very important to the greater game. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess you have that wonderful narrative of slaying the dragon, and you always have this wild card in every tournament who's going to win it. So taking him out as this huge scalp, as opposed to just the wild west of going.
Yeah, you get two titles. You get two title matches basically. Whoever can beat Novak, and then the actual final. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it was only one match, and Novak won anyways. So yeah, I think it's an interesting point. Shall we get to two challenges remaining, or you got anything else for this tournament?
I mentioned the group briefly. Now, if I was... Every single time that we talk about the wheelchair, singles and doubles and everything, the winning streak always comes up.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a guess at how many it's at now for the group?
400?
A Grand Slam level, I mean.
Oh, okay. Got me way off. Grand Slam level 7. Let's say 90. More than that.
It's over 90. So this is 21 majors, and the winning streak is 135.
Wow.
That's better than The Undertaker, right?
Definitely. The group's got some great writers, I guess. That's the gauge we're going on.
Exactly. Scripted? Question
mark? What an accomplishment. But I do, it's cool to see as well the field getting bigger for these sports, and the accessibility to play at a high level grow. I think that was a big challenge as well, in terms of where these players were coming from and which countries could produce wheelchair athletes. It would be great to see athletes from different nations get the same chance.
100% agree. I have a question for you. At what point do you go from like bored to being terrified to being excited of protecting this winning streak? Do you think you're like bored is right around like 40?
I would love to know. I mean, I would love to think that she wants to be beaten. She's just waiting, or it's a maniacal possession of hers like Gollum in the ring that she cannot afford to lose. So I hope it's not that, but it would be kind of funny if it was.
Is there a more impressive streak in all of sport? I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Don't spoil my two challenges remaining, because I'm going to get to one.
And with that, let's get the two challenges remaining. Dev. What is yours?
I'd love to shout out Simon Bushel's beloved Edmonton Oilers on the second longest winning streak in NHL history. Surely this means that they're going to win the Stanley Cup. And surely by shouting them out here, I'm not jinxing them. So shout out to the Edmonton Oilers, Simon. What a team.
Have you been enjoying the way they've been winning matches as well? Matches, Jesus, I'm still in tennis mode.
Get off your high. Look at these Edmonton fans with their monocle calling these matches just because they had Gretzky once a time. I think they've been playing a bunch of bums. I think the teams they've been playing have been garbage. So let's see what happens when they play some real teams. But no, good on you guys.
I think there's something really funny about that whole thing as well, which is that, yes, I think the team they played is less than stellar. But then everyone would fucking do it, wouldn't they? Where's your 16-game winning streak? It would have been so popular for teams to do it.
People, we had it so good when this team was terrible at the beginning of the year. People forget. There are true monsters that lie within. Okay, that's mine. What do you got, Simon?
Let's talk about the Edmonton. No, I'm
Corey Perry.
Corey Perry. Yeah, exactly. No, seriously, it's nice to see him back and getting the help that he needs.
You've gone full Edmonton talk radio. Oh my God.
I need to be wearing like a pair of sunglasses or something, don't I, on this broadcast? And
backwards hat.
Yeah, backwards hat. How Steve Dangle can I go? Can we do a Steve Dangle episode of Open Air at some point, Dev? Where I'm yelling into the camera. Is that possible?
Soon. Yeah.
Soon. My two challenges remaining is cycling, of all things. And specifically, waterproof clothing. So what happened to me was I made the mistake. I have lived in Vancouver for 12 years, and still I got caught out by this. I was going to go over to my office, and I was cycling across. It's like a 15-minute bike ride away. And I saw a break in the clouds and was like, it's my time to shine. I'm getting on the bike. I'm getting over to the office. I'm not going to get wet. 2 minutes into the ride, soaked. Head to toe. I got caught in a deluge. Was completely and utterly soaking. And I'm there like with an afternoon full of meetings booked. Completely soaked. No shower. No tumble dryer. No towel.
You should have just left your helmet on at that point. You might as well just left all of your gear on in those meetings.
I did. I was so close to being like, I'm not feeling well. I just got to go home. Like, I'm feeling so sick.
Who would have doubted that if they saw you soaked, though? I think you had grounds.
And in response to this, in a fit of rage, I went out and bought some waterproof trousers and clothing for my cycling ride. And since then, it's been fantastic.
Funny you mentioned that. That's an actual. I feel like this is an omen, as my partner and I get set to embark on a bike ride shortly. And I always ask if I had waterproof pants, and I don't think so, Simon. I don't think so.
Dude, life-changing. I'm telling you.
Is this how marketing works? Is this how the algorithm works now? Or just thoughts? Is this even just me throwing around the word algorithm for all to explain everything? All right.
I'm technically a sponsored post. Like that's what I am at this point. That's the new start of marketing.
Let's end this here before the Sunday scaries truly destroy me. A reminder, we are on patreon.com/open era. I mentioned the Discord a bunch because they're great. The people on there are great. I had a blast. We had a blast all throughout the tournament chatting with them. Considering the time zones, like I thought the best way for me to catch up literally was to see what the folks in there were talking about and then tune in accordingly. So shout out to our Discord. Join us on Patreon and you can join them. Plus you get the show ad free and you get it early on Sundays. We're on X. /twitter.com/open-era-pod. Really, really trying times until Novak and Zverev got kicked out. But it's truly deranged fan bases out there. Holy cow. I don't know if it is definitely worse, but like, God, what a cesspool. X.
Should we go to Threads?
I haven't opened that app in a long time, and I don't think I will. So
okay, good decision.
It's all bad, probably. Okay. For producer Dill on the ones and twos, and for Simon, thank you so much for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next time.